Hello. My name is Kyra and we're going to be talking about Google Drive today. So all of you guys should have a Google account. If you have a Google business listing, I expect that you do have a Google account. You may refer to it as your Gmail account. So in order to get to Google Drive, you can just go into google.com and you can see up here at the top right, this little K for Kyra. This is how I get to my accounts on Google, okay? So one thing that I see a lot of people do is they have several Google accounts, right? Maybe you have one for your business, maybe you have one for your personal. You always want to go up here and click on it and make sure you're on the account that you want to be working with, right? So you want your work Google Drive to be associated with your business email, right? So that's how you're going to go ahead and switch between your accounts. You can see when I opened it up that I had quite a few. Now over here, all of these little dots here, this is going to open up the Google apps. So this is a lot of really great stuff that Google provides. There is a lot, but what we are going to do is go to Drive. It's the one that's the triangle with the different colors. Okay, so you can see here, and it says Drive. That's where we're going to be going today. Now, I do want to preface this with this is not the account I usually use. I set up this drive specifically for this training. It is for training purposes. So none of my client information is here, but I kind of have duplicated the way I have my drive set up. So up here at the top, you're going to see suggested. Okay, Google is going to suggest which, documents you may want to go look at. So they're going to show you some here. But when you go a little farther down, you can see my folders. We're going to talk about it. And these are files that are in the home drive, right? They're not in a folder, they're out here. So this is what all of this information here in the middle is. So over here in the top left corner, you have new. Anytime you want to add something to your Google Drive, you're going to go here to new. So when I click on it, you can see a lot of stuff. So we have folder. This would be how I create a new folder. We have file uploads. You can also upload folders. So another great thing about Google Drive that I will say is that this is in the cloud. One of the reasons I love using Google Drive is because no matter what device I'm on, I have access to my files. So for those of us who may be on the go and maybe we use our cell phone, but when we're home, we use our laptop, right? You can still access those files from anywhere that you're logged into your Google account. I know some of you might use tablets as well. So you can have all of your information everywhere and it syncs together, but you can also upload all the documents that you have on your computer onto Google Drive. So this has uses beyond business. Now here we have Google Docs. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail about all of the products here because we do have trainings on the team website for a lot of these. For example, Google Docs, this is going to be like a Word document. This is where you're going to put like a bunch of text. It's going to be like writing on paper. Okay, I've definitely done trainings on this before. Now Google Sheets, this is going to be your spreadsheet. Okay, maybe you're going to use this to keep track of your expenses, right? Maybe you don't use Expensify. Maybe you want to keep tabs of clients and information like that. Spreadsheets are fantastic. Google Slides, this is probably more applicable for our trainers. I certainly use Google Slides when I do a training, but it is like a presentation, okay? And then we have Google Forms here. I've done training on this as well. Great applications for Google Forms are going to be your, how do you qualify your clients, right? What kind of a quote request are they asking for? Maybe you're going to have a survey for when they return from their trip. You're going to create a form. They're going to fill out that form, or maybe a contact us form on your website. Now here at More, you can see a few other things. The other one that I use here is Google Sites. Okay, there's also training on this on the website. Google Sites is a website that you can host for free. Google will host it for free. So for a lot of travel agents who are just starting out, Google Sites is a really great option because you are not paying for it unless you pay for your domain. And that's something that we'll go into more detail in that training. So let's go here and let's create a new folder. Okay, so let's say I want a folder for mock bookings. So you can see just like that, I create the folder and it's going to pop it right on in here. So some of these folders here that I have in my sample drive, clients, I'm going to go into a lot more detail on that shortly. Forms, whenever I create a Google form, I just throw it in the forms folder, right? And, you know, maybe I'm running like a promotion, refer someone and get a $10 Amazon gift card. Maybe I want a separate form for that, right? So you can see how these forms might add up. It might be beyond just what you might think you're using the form for, because maybe you want to, you know, use different time frames. Images, you know, I put my logo here, as well as if I found some really great open source, that means free images that are not copyrighted that you're allowed to use. If I find some that I like to save them, and I can use them on my Facebook page, my website, all of that. So I like to have a folder for images. Now, mock bookings, I just created this. Now, let's say you make a lot of mock bookings. Maybe you are doing mock bookings every day. It would be really great that you store these mock bookings and you keep track of which vendor did you use, which pricing did you use, all of those details that don't go on the mock booking. But if you do have a client reach out a month down the road, right, you want to make sure you know what where that mock booking really came from. So I think that's a great application for Google Drive. And then I have a sample quotes folder as well. This folder, if I have a quote that, let's say I really like that quote, for example, let's say a cruise. I do my cruise quotes a little differently than I do other quotes. So I like to have a sample that I can work off of. So I've done a quote, I love it. I'm going to throw it in my sample so that I can refer to it later without having to dig for it. So that's kind of what I use that for. So now I'm going to walk you guys into my clients folder, and this is actually how I organize it. So I have a folder for the clients who have booked a trip with me, and then another folder for clients who I've quoted a trip. Now, these quoted clients, they may eventually move into the booked clients folder, maybe not, right? Sometimes clients wait a month, and then the next thing you know, you get a phone call and they're ready to book. So I always keep track of every quote that I do, regardless of if they book, and all of that information. So I'm going to go into my quoted clients folder here. And the way I typically organize this is actually by month, okay? I find that that helps me to keep track of the clients, and I'll show you guys another way that I do that in a bit here. But you can see here, these are the months. So I've got September, October, November, December, etc. Okay, and if the client doesn't book the trip, I'm going to move them into that folder. So let's see here, I have John Smith. Now, whenever I organize my clients, I always put last name, comma, first name. You'll see why here in a bit, but it's very important that you have that information, because the consistency is what's going to help keep you organized. So every file that I have for John Smith, it says Smith in the title. That way, if I need to find it later, I can find all of the Smith files at once. Now, Smith is kind of common. You might run into two of them, right? But for most cases, it's going to really help to have it organized this way. So I'm going to go in here to John Smith. I'm working on him. So here I have a notes, okay? So you can't read the title, but this says Smith-Las Vegas. This is where John wants to go. And it says over here, notes. That part is cut off, but I organize all of my files with the same file name strategy, just as I do the folders. So what kind of things would I have here? Now, this is a Google Doc, okay? So if you haven't seen one before, this is what it looks like. If you've used Word before, it's very similar. So when I have my notes on John, I've got his name, his phone number, his email address, and then I'm going to use this document to keep all of my notes on, you know, which vendors am I talking to? What does John say when I speak to him on the phone, right? So there's some information on his trip here, some other notes, right? This is some ancillary information that's very helpful, right? He wants to stay on the strip in Vegas. Maybe he wants Blue Man Group. So then I'm going to go down in this document, and it's going to be like a living document for as long as I'm working on this reservation. So on this date, I researched his options. This is the vendor I use. I also use this vendor. And then I'm going to put on here, on this date, I sent him the quote at this time via email. And I had a call with him at this time, 5 minutes later, right? That's what you should be doing. You should be emailing these quotes to your clients very shortly before your scheduled time on the phone to talk about it. I put some notes here. But John wanted to talk to his wife, right? He wants to talk to his wife because this is their 5-year anniversary trip. So we have a follow-up scheduled for 5 p.m. Now, let's say that I needed to call the vendor, right? This is very important. When you call the vendor, you want to know, who did you talk to? What did they say, right? A lot of times when you're doing maybe like a special trip, maybe something you don't do all of the time, right? It's not cut and dry like Vegas is. Maybe you need to call these vendors who don't work with travel agents and you have those million questions. Type all that up because it's going to be really helpful for you. So this is kind of what I do with a notes document, is to keep track of those communications and anything from the vendor as well. So I'm actually going to show you how I create the quote for him. So you can see here at the top, this is my file path. Okay, this is the path from my drive all the way to John's folder. So I'm going to go back to my drive just by clicking on it over here. Now, if you notice when we started, I have a quote template, okay? So if you have watched my trainings on quotes with Google Docs, you have probably seen this before. I'll open it in a moment. But this quote template, it has my information and my logo on it. And I don't want to have to put that there every time I do a quote. So this is my template. When I am ready to make a quote for someone, I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to go up to make a copy. Okay, so I can make a copy of it here in my Google Drive. I don't have to copy paste it, right? I can just make that copy. It is creating right now. And it's going to be called copy of quote template. Okay, now I want to move this into John's folder. So I'm actually going to show you 2 ways that you can move files around. The first way is to right click on it and you can go up to move to. This will allow you to move the folder or the file to any folder or any location. So you can see here, it pulled it up. So John was under clients, he was under quoted clients, and he's here at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and go to his folder. You can see the other document that's in here, and I'm going to go to move here. So you can see now it's not in my main drive, not the home page. It's now in John's folder. So let's go back to John's folder. He's in quoted clients. He's down here at the back. And actually, let me take a step back here. The other way to move files around is something that we're probably more familiar with on our computers, is simply just drag and drop. So I'm working on John, it's December, I'm going to drag his folder into that folder. So you can see there's 2 ways. Now, when you're moving a file like very far, right, in several folders, like I just did with John's quote template, that would be a great case to use the move to. But if you're only moving it into one folder, I tend to just drag and drop it. But if it's going far, I will use the move to. So I'm going to go into here on the copy of quote template. Up here at the top, I'm going to go ahead and rename this file. Okay, so my name structure is last name dash where they're going. And for the quotes, I always put quote. Okay, so for notes, I do notes. For quote, I do quote. And you can see here, this quote template, it's copied. I have my price and availability subject to change, as well as my contact information and my logo. Okay, so I'm going to just type something in here. This is John Smith's quote. Of course, you're going to have a lot more than that in your quote. Now, something else I want to make sure to hit on here, that one of the great things about Google Docs and about Google Drive is that you can export these to PDF formats. I am a strong believer that a PDF document looks way more professional than any other file type or just copy pasting it into an email. So I always like to send my clients PDFs for their travel documents, PDFs for their quotes, all of that, because I do believe that is a lot more professional. So from here, I'm going to go to File, down to download, and you can see I have a lot of options here. I'm going to use the PDF and it's going to go straight into my downloads folder. You guys can probably see it downloading down here. Okay, so something else that I do now, that let's go back to John's folder here. Okay, it might take it a second to refresh the name here, but I've got his notes and I've got the quote that I have put together. Now I actually am going to drag the file into this folder. So I like to save the PDF versions of the file too, because the PDF is not going to change. Your Google Doc, you can constantly change that, right? maybe John doesn't like one of the options and I want to change it to something else, right? Maybe he's that client that needs a revision to his quote. Well, now that I've changed this Google Doc, I no longer have a great copy of the first quote that I sent him. So I'm actually going to go, you probably can't see this, but I'm going to my downloads folder and I am going to drag and drop, let's see, there it is, drag and drop this file into here. So that is one way you can add a file to your Google Drive. You'll see this upload over here in the bottom corner. That green check is great. That means it's uploaded to my Google Drive. So now I have the notes, the quote, as well as the PDF. And this is the PDF that I sent John, okay, in our example. Now, another way to upload the folder or the file is to go over to new, just like we talked about at the beginning. You can upload your file from here or from folder upload. If I click file upload, it's going to open up a place for me to pick out which file that I want to upload. Okay, so we've got his quote in here. So that is kind of how I'm going to do the organization when I'm working on the quote. But I want to show you guys how it might look like after I have booked it for the client. So I'm going to go all the way back to my drive. Now I'm going to show you my booked clients folder. Okay. Again, this is a sample, so I've only got 2 in here right now. It's the same thing, is last name, comma, first name. Okay. Now, as you grow your clients, you might want to organize these in like alphabetical order by folder, right? So maybe like I was doing on the quoted, I was doing it by month. I don't like doing it by month for booked clients because a lot of times they're rebooking, right? You don't know which month the trip is in, makes it harder to find, right? If you've booked 3 trips for them, which month does it go in? So for these booked clients, when this becomes too much to look at, I would organize it like, for example, last name A through E in one folder and then move all those guys in just to have it a little cleaner. That's what I would recommend for this. For this example, I just have these 2. So let's go to Jane Doe, okay? She's booked a trip, but she's actually booked 2 trips. So when I get into a client that's booked a trip, I actually create a folder for every trip that they have booked. So you can see here, this is her last name, Doe, 2021. She went to Cancun, okay? So I've got this saved. But in 2022, she wants to go, you can't see this, it's a little too long, the Caribbean cruise, okay? That's the one downside to the naming strategy that I use, is that sometimes it can be verbose, it can be very long. So let's go into her Caribbean cruise here that she's going on next year. You can see I've got my notes here. I've got my quote as well as my PDF quote, okay? So you can see I've got these files. But what I'm actually going to do is inside her folder, I'm going to make 2 other folders, one for credit card authorization forms and one for her identification images. So these credit card auth forms, I save a copy of the credit card auth form before she signed it, as well as once it's signed, okay? So that I have the file I sent her, but I also have the file that she sent me back. So I keep these in here. You know, sometimes for some clients, you might do a credit card auth form 2 times, 3 times, right? Maybe they booked a trip and they booked so far in advance you couldn't do flights. So the next thing you know, a few months later, you're booking flights and getting another form signed. I like to put this in a separate folder because I like it to be clean. I don't want too many files in a single folder because then it becomes hard to navigate through. Now, the identification images, this is the same thing, right? If you have a family of 5 and they all are giving you their passport photos, that's 5 images, right? So I throw all of those into a folder as well. Now, I didn't add this in my sample, and I'm now realizing that I should have, is that her travel documents are going to be in here just like her quote. I'm going to have the Google Doc version of her travel documents, and I'm also going to have the PDF version of the travel documents, which is the document that I have actually emailed to her. Okay, so what we're going to do here, now we're going to go back to my drive. Now, the reason I do this, and guys, I'll be honest, I do this in my emails too. When I email my clients, I'll put Doe / Caribbean cruise / quote. So my names of my emails actually match my files too. So it makes it easy to search my emails as well. But let's say that I want to look for John Smith, okay? And I just type Smith into this search bar up here, and look at that. Everything popped up. I didn't have to dig through my files. I even got his folder. So I can even go into his folder from there, and everything is popping up. That is why I do it this way, is so that I don't have to dig for those files, right? Let's make it easy. Now, the last thing I want to mention here is going to be cost, okay? So if you see over here on the left-hand side, storage, since this is not the Google Drive that I typically use, you can see I've used about 26 megabytes and Google is giving me 15 gigabytes with my account. That's actually quite a bit. Now let's click here on buy storage. I just want you guys to see what the price is here. This is on the annual. They give you 15 gigabytes of storage for free. Okay, that's a really great place to start. But maybe you have a lot of clients. Maybe you collect pictures from your clients. The next thing you know, you've got like 20 pictures from every single trip that you booked. Now you need more storage. I'll be honest, my husband and I use this personally, and we like the Google Drive. We share it. We put all of our photos in there. We can both access it. We don't have it saved on a computer. It's in the cloud. So we pay for the 100 gigabytes, I believe is the one that we have. But if you want this for your business, you can see this is $20 a year on the annual plan. So it really doesn't cost that much more to buy storage if you ever need to. Now, I will say for my business, the 15 gigabytes has been pretty sufficient so far, but you never know. I just want you guys to know that you can pay for more if you find the need to do that. And also just so that you know, it's really not as expensive as you might think that it is. So that is what I have to say about Google Drive. I hope you learned something today. Thank you for watching this training, and I'll see you guys around.